We are here kicking off the afternoon's entertainment for you. In the ever-evolving entertainment world, the game is changing faster than you can say streaming wars. While broadcast TV still commands the lion's share of viewership, the landscape is shifting beneath our feet. Today, we're going behind the brand with two heavyweights from our iconic ITV. We welcome Craig Morris, the visionary managing editor of ITVX, and Jane Stiller, marketing maverick and chief marketing officer for ITV. I'm Gemma Christie, and I head up growth marketing at GWI, a global consumer research platform that provides on-demand access to the insights, behaviors, and interests of nearly 3 billion consumers. During the next 30 minutes, I'll pick Jane and Craig's brains on how a legendary name like ITV innovates to stay ahead of the curve, from leveraging data to deeply understanding their viewers to forge a marketing blueprint that cuts through the noise of the attention economy. The way we watch TV has changed. In my house alone, we consume content in different ways. My mum tunes in to watch Corrie still religiously. I'll watch Trigger Point on catch-up. We'll watch the FA Cup live, and we like to sit down together to watch Saturday Night TV, but not always on a Saturday. GWI's latest global media landscape report shows that broadcast TV still commands a greater share of total TV time, which, I'll be honest, was a surprise to me. I was expecting live streaming to come up first. So, Craig, we know consumer habits have changed. What does this mean for ITV? And what role does ITVX play in the brand's future?
Well, firstly, thank you for that introduction. That was a big introduction. And we're going to try and keep you all awake, by the way. I know it's always the tough slot after lunch. So we'll talk very loudly and excitedly and hopefully keep you engaged. But no, listen, ITVX just fits into ITV's wider strategy, which is audience viewing is changing, and you've alluded to it there. It's segmenting more, different, multiple people in one family, as you quite rightly say, actually, can do their own thing now. I think the first thing is an important point you made. I've been in TV for almost 20 years. In my first year in TV 20 years ago, I was a scheduler. I used to schedule BBC Two. People said to me, you'll be out of work in 5 years. Live scheduled TV is dead. It's got no place. That was 20 years ago, way before Netflix really was the dominant force it is. And I think what people forget, actually, is whether it's breaking news, whether it's the FA Cup or the Euros this summer, whether it's Ant and Dec's final show on Saturday Night Takeaway or the return of BGT or Love Island every night or I'm a Celebrity, there are always going to be shows that the nation stops and likes to talk about and enjoy all at one time. Eurovision is coming up in a few weeks on the BBC, another great example of that. And I know, because I talk to the people at the streamers, that the likes of Netflix are incredibly jealous of what ITV has, which is the ability to promote one show in one slot and get a load of people there, which kind of it's like lighting a firework that lights the spark that then makes a show like Trigger Point, or more recently Red Eye's been a big success for us. It lights the spark in a way that Netflix really struggles with. It can get talkability over time, Netflix, but it struggles to drive a media conversation in one place at one time. So as a good example of this is if audiences were watching a show like Trigger Point, almost half of them watched all of Trigger Point in the first week, but it was helped that it had this big linear moment on ITV1 to launch it. So ITVX is there because audiences are migrating into streaming, and we can't get away from that, and we want to embrace that. So we want to use the big moments in the linear schedule, we call them fireworks, to get people through the door, because a lot of people increasingly are watching those moments live on ITVX as well as linear TV. And when they're through the door, we can then hang on to them for our advertisers. Once upon a time, because half of Love Island's audience is based on catch-up through the app. And they would have pitched up for Love Island, and then they would have gone because there was nothing else on the old ITV hub, as it was called, for them. Now, I mentioned fireworks get people through the door. We've got these bonfires that burn away, and the idea is you turn up for Love Island, but you actually notice that we've got the Vampire Diaries, and you start watching that, and you keep coming back to us watching that for months afterwards. So ITVX sort of slots into the wider ITV strategy. It's also future-proofing us. You know, in 10 years' time, many more households in the UK will be watching TV, whether it's live or streamed through IP, through the internet. So it's all part of future-proofing ITV. And ultimately, we want to make good telly. Great telly that gets people talking. And the great thing about something like ITVX is we can play our part in that. It's just another route to those audiences.
So you're going through a change which I think a lot of people here will, kind of relate to, and it's similar to many organisations where you have to keep innovating to stay relevant. And it's essential for any brand to know their audience. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing to really know your viewer and where they're going and how you're using data to connect that?
Yeah, full disclosure here, I'm a total nerd. I'm a complete geek, which is why I do what I do. So it's really important to say, if you work in the editorial teams for a broadcaster, particularly in my case where you were putting schedules or linear channels together or streaming services more recently in recent years, it's all about knowing the audience. And the great thing about streaming is you get more data points than ever before. I got used to reading sort of Barb overnights for many years. You're looking at demos, profiles, where that audience is viewing, whether it's live or catch up. In streaming, the scary thing is we have so many data points. I could go and look at one person. They'd be anonymized. I wouldn't know who they are, but I could see everything they watched yesterday. And it's quite enlightening if you look at the journey of a viewer through the day, because they might be binging on a US young skewing drama late afternoon, then they might watch a bit of one of the soaps, Corrie, and then they might binge on a drama, and you can watch those routes. So the data is embedded in everything we do. I think it's really important. We never look at just one source of data. So one important point is, if I just looked at the ITVX data, I'd only see a snapshot of what a person's watching. Because unlike Netflix, some of our viewing will be consumed via a linear TV, a different screen in the house. And that data won't be reflected in our first-party data. So I'm also looking at Barb. I'm also looking at what's going on with other streamers and their profiles. Fortunately, they're all reporting through Barb now, so I can look at a show like Baby Reindeer and see it's catching flight for Netflix. The good news for us is when we look at the Barb figures, Netflix probably have 4 of the most watched shows in every 100. Most of the other shows are on BBC One and ITV, and when Love Island's on ITV2 actually as well. So we know where we're sitting. We're getting to know the competition, but I don't really look at the competition so much. I want to know that the audiences we're after for our advertisers, which are predominantly under 55. I want to see what they're watching, where they are, what they loved. I'm so much of a geek, even before I came down now, I was having a sandwich upstairs, looking at what people were watching yesterday. And what we do is we sort of fan the flames, and I'm sure Jane can talk to this a bit more, but we look for shows that just are taking flight, that are doing particularly well, and then we'll get behind them even more on product and push them even more heavily towards people. If something isn't quite catching, we might move the homepage around, we might change the artwork, but we're looking at the data and we're studying trends and what people are watching. And that, of course, then it's like a circle, really. We're putting it out there, and then the stuff that works, we want to do more of it. We'll commission more of those kind of shows. We'll go out and buy more of those kind of box sets. And it's all informed by the data, really. We'll then see how they perform, and then we'll decide what we're going to renew, what we're going to drop quietly, and what new things we can bring in. But the key, if you're a streamer particularly, but it's the same on the linear TV schedules, is to have a regular drumbeat of big moments across the big genres. And for us, if you want under 55s, you need big entertainment shows like we've got on a Saturday night. You need the big reality shows like Celebrity Big Brother and Love Island, and you need big punchy dramas and some comedy. So they're the genres we tend to zone in on, but it's all born out of the data we're looking. My team, everybody who works for me, they're studying dashboards and data from everything that's been going on from the previous week, the previous month, the year to date, to make sure we deliver the main metrics, which, by the way, our monthly active users. We want to see how many people are using us each month. What's the reach? We get over 20 million people using ITVX every single month coming onto our homepage. So we need to build that and grow that over time. But it's a good stat. But we want them to keep coming back more frequently, more consecutive months. We'll get those monthly active users up even higher. And then once they're through the door, remember I said the fireworks will get them there. How long are they staying with us? How long are they watching? What's their completion rate looking like on shows? Are they watching through to the end? So we're looking at all those kind of data points on practically a daily basis to inform what we do going forward.
I'm also a massive data geek, and I think what we all want to know is these anonymous users, are you judging them based on what they're watching?
I never judge anybody. You're all advertising products, particularly in an advertising world. I've worked in the media on the commercial side for almost 30 years. I tell you now, if they're under 55, I'm not going to be precious about what they're watching. If they like it, I can tell you now, one of our biggest shows of the last year was Footballers' Wives, and that is not high art, but it is well loved by people. So I'm not going to diss them for that. We're going to keep giving it to them. And I don't know about anybody. I don't know whether anybody's seen Red Eye that we've got at the moment. The show is preposterous. It's crazy, but it makes it all the better because we do the Mr. Bates stuff, and that's amazing. Mr. Bates has been this enormous story for us this year. Over 6 million people have watched it just on ITVX. You've seen the stats. So it's great to do that stuff. We're a public service broadcaster. We do a lot of breaking news and live news on ITVX and on our channels. It's really important. But there needs to be a counterbalance to that. And Love Island, or in my case this week, Red Eye, is a good guilty pleasure. And it's nuts and it's crazy. And I'm not going to judge anybody for watching it because we all need it in our lives.
I was going to say, did you see there was a Red Eye review this weekend that referred to it as a kebab?
Yeah, yes, it really is.
Sometimes you want a Michelin star meal, but sometimes you just want a kebab.
Yeah,
and they're great.
Sometimes
That's Red Eye.
There's a moment where you want to watch a topless Richard Armitage stapling his stomach back together with a stapler. But, it suddenly goes all die hard.
Wants.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think you've sold it. Jane, as a fellow marketer, I'd love to come to you to understand more about kind of what this impact has on your marketing strategy and how that's going to evolve over the next 12 months.
Well, I think as Craig said, a lot of it, and you guys will know in the room, it's just a different route to market, So we have linear, which is, delivered in a certain way, and we have streaming, which is delivered in a different way from a technology point of view. But from a viewer behaviour, it's broadly the same. It's, have you got big shows that people want to come and see? And then, as Craig said, have you got those bonfires that burn kind of underneath it? I think the interesting shifts that have been for us from a marketing point of view. First of all, I guess the power of the brand. So ITV within the UK context is a great brand, but it's definitely known more for kind of entertainment shows, some kind of big dramas, but less, I guess, of the things that probably Netflix is famous for, some of that slightly kind of different type of drama, maybe comedy. So actually the power of the brand, but also the opportunity in slightly repositioning that brand to different audiences has been a big part. And then I think probably, similar to a lot of retailers that have gone through the kind of bricks and mortar to e-com kind of journey, just the wealth of data that comes when you have a first-party relationship and the expansion, I guess, in terms of your marketing tools and techniques that you can use to be able to target those viewers in a different way. So previously we might have known who was coming to, a big show at 9 p.m, but we knew it in kind of broad demographics. We couldn't then go and retarget them one-to-one. So let's say someone drops off after 2 episodes of a show and we want to bring them back for the 3rd episode. Back in the day, we couldn't do that. Now we know who they are. We know what point in the show they dropped off. We can retarget them both on our own platforms, but also through digital platforms to say, come back and pick up where you left off. So I think the tools and the techniques have definitely expanded with the advent of having so much more first-party data. But as everyone knows, the fundamentals of marketing don't change, do they? It's know your audience, deliver them a proposition that they want and do it, in a time and place that is relevant to them. So those things don't change, but the techniques, I think, have advanced for us. And it's just fun. It's fun being able to do the content personalisation journeys. It's fun to be able to have, like Footballers' Wives is a great example. When it took off, we were able to find cohorts of lookalikes that we thought would be interested in that show. We were able to retarget them with some really fun creative, around a show that really hasn't had, a huge amount of traction. Similarly, actually, recently, there was one of the big actors in Saltburn, which was really big on Amazon Prime. We had one of his old show called Love Hate. Again, an archive show, not been a big show for us for a long time, but he talked about it in one of his interviews. It started getting, a lot of Google search interest. We saw that, and therefore we spun up a campaign and really pushed that show, and it was, one of our top shows last month. So again, it just feels like you're listening to your viewers more, and you're able to react to trends, I think, a lot more. And I guess we're fortunate because we are, as a brand, so at the heart of popular culture. It kind of comes naturally us to be responsive and to have a right to play, I guess, in a lot of those conversations.
Was Footballers' Wives a surprise that it took off? And
yeah, I think it was.
I think when it's an older drama, you just never know. Are people going to go, oh, it's old? And what surprised me is it's young audiences. So it really was people coming in for I'm a Celebrity or a Love Island and going, oh, this looks like a fun, guilty pleasure. And they sort of discovered it anew. New generations, we find, discover these shows. Dawson's Creek is another example of that. Or people have discovered how brilliant Community or 30 Rock or Parks and Rec is, because we've got all those box sets now on ITVX. As Jane said, the exciting thing about it for us is it's more targeted. We can bring in lighter ITV viewers, maybe less of the traditional ITV viewers, and get to a new audience. And we had a big investment of over £100 million, and that will continue, which is helping us bring in content that doesn't maybe fit the linear portfolio. There's a different audience there, and we love them. We love because they're big and they're huge. But with X, we can be more experimental and get into genres like true crime and sci-fi, which would have been difficult.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, particularly from a marketing point of view. Like my background isn't in TV marketing. It's kind of consumer goods, retail. And I thought what I found really interesting coming here is, if you listen to what Craig just said, there was, 5 different shows there? That's 5 different brands, 5 different audiences. So the level of kind of, I guess, intricacy of the audiences that you need to be able to build, to be able to target stuff, the branding work that needs, we're basically launching a new brand pretty much every week. Like we just talked about Red Eye. Red Eye's a one-off. It's 6 eps, I think. 6 eps, it's been and gone, it's done. So we'll have spent, a couple of £1 million marketing it, and then it's done. So, but we still had to do all of the branding work on the positioning, understand the audience. But, now it's kind of, it's over. It'll continue to live on ITVX, and it'll continue having an audience, probably until it comes off the service, but it's had its moment in the sun, and then we kind of have to move on from a marketing point of view. So there's definitely a interest, I think, in terms of the way you market content that's quite different, I think, to other genres.
Craig, you mentioned 100 million investment. So I read recently that there's been an additional kind of 15 million investment into marketing.
There has.
Super interested into kind of what you're planning to spend that on, kind of what channels that's going to go on, and how you're going to measure that return.
So I think what's amazing about ITV is not only we obviously build brands for other people, but we're also very passionate about the value of marketing in driving growth within our business. I think we genuinely see marketing as a lever for growth alongside obviously our amazing content. And so at the launch of ITVX, we invested a lot more in marketing investment as well as content investment. And I think the feeling was, what's the point in having all of this amazing content if no one even knows it's there? So, the two have to kind of come hand in hand. The product and the marketing, both have to live up to a certain level of expectation. So the amount that we're investing at the moment, we invest heavily in your standard kind of broadcast channels. So, mass reaching channels like TV. We spend money off air on TV, despite having pretty much all the TV inventory you could possibly want for free at ITV. We still spend on other TV platforms because we really see the value in it. We see it coming up really strongly in our econometrics. We then spend, on the usual big out of home, big kind of reach driving Facebook campaigns, all the stuff to kind of fill the top of the funnel. We then spend a lot on point of sale. So for us, rather than that being kind of a gondola end in a retail or something like that, that for us is with the connected TV platforms. So we spend with Samsung, we spend with Roku, so that when you turn on your TV, our content is right there at the point of purchase. And then we spend a lot on all of the digital channels, as you would assume. So, Meta, TikTok, YouTube we spend with as well. All the ones that you would expect to drive that conversion kind of through to our digital product. An area that we're investing more in as well is around influencer marketing. So we've done a lot on that over the years around value exchange. So inviting kind of key influencers to the Love Island Villa, for example. But we're making a big investment this year of about 100 kind of content creators that will work closely with ITV over a year-long period, so really get to know our content slate, get to know our commissioners, and from our point of view, there's a value exchange. Obviously, we want them to really evangelise about how amazing ITV is and our content and our brand, but also, a lot of them want to be TV presenters or want to feature on our shows, and we're always looking for great talent to do those things. So there's a real kind of mutual benefit in a lot of the work we're doing there. So yeah, lots of different ways that we spend our money. I don't have an issue spending money. It's fine. It comes very easily to me. But yeah, I think in terms of the measurement point, a lot of that we do through econometrics. We really, we've gone down the journey of, last click and multi-touch, all of those journeys that I'm sure a lot of you will have been down. But for us, we feel like econometrics gives us the value of all of our channels much more effectively than going right kind of, into deep detail specifically on the digital channels. So which is why, like I said, we spend so much across the mix, not just in the bottom of the funnel.
I don't have any problem spending money either.
It's great, isn't it?
My husband, an Amazon delivery driver, would agree. So I'm going to throw some stats out at you. So being a data nerd, we can't do a session without sharing some stats. So there's been a 32% jump in Brits wanting personalised recommendations from ads. Also discounts, and they want their ads to be entertaining as well.
Well, I'd agree with all of that. I should say, I think after launching last year, we launched with fairly basic personalisation and recommendation, but we've got a new personalisation recommendation engine plugged in this year that will be rolling out across the app more. And that's part of the key, is getting not just the content, but obviously the advertising as well, personalised and bespoke to the people watching. It's much more efficient and a better way to work. So I think we're sort of on the journey. I think people want personalisation in their lives. I think you've got to get the balance right. Several surveys recently have shown that 60% of streaming users, and this includes the big beasts like Netflix and Disney Plus, are unsatisfied with what they get delivered on their streaming screen. We've all done it, the doom scrolling, I call it the analysis paralysis, which is you spend more time looking for something to watch than actually watching. Because we've hit peak TV, there's so much of it out there. It has become a genuine problem. So I think we're in a world now where we work very closely with marketing to go, let's really communicate our priorities clearly. Let's maybe do a little less, but do it bigger with more cut through, because I think that's working. People don't need more TV. What they want is better TV. And we'll use personalisation, and then a team of editors who actually can spot the themes, the moments, the star of Saltburn tweeting about something, sort of jumping on the back of the public conversation in a way an algorithm struggles to. So for me, it's art and science. There's a bit of art in this, and then you use the science bit to really connect it to people. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement that that's the train we're on now.
On the advertising side, and just there's so many questions, Jane, in particular, that I could ask you, but just thinking about the audiences in this room, I think it would be good to understand how the advertising opportunities for brands have changed and what that looks like on both ITV and ITVX.
Well, I mean, I remember, 10 years ago thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if you could personalise TV? Because it felt like that was kind of when, there was so much stuff coming through from Facebook with targeted audiences, and it just felt so much more efficient. But then, of course, you didn't have the kind of, I guess, the creative outlet that TV allows you. And we see time and time again through effectiveness studies that, that 30-second spot with the attention that it delivers, with the story that you can tell, does, outperform a lot of, lower attention media. And I'm not just saying that because I work for ITV. It's my job to deliver the audiences to ITV. So if I didn't, if I didn't think it worked, I'm in the wrong job. So I think, we've worked really hard to make sure that you've got mass audiences at scale, but with personalisation opportunities as well. And, we continue to innovate the product to make sure that we're delivering, like I said, mass audiences, but clever ways of personalising that deliver against advertisers' goals. So, a great example recently is pause ads. So when you pause the show, you can get basically a poster which comes up on the screen, and it's like so when the show's paused, there's an advert. And again, it's a different way of advertising. So we're constantly trying to innovate to deliver still scale, but personalisation at scale. Because I think, the more you get into really, really one-to-one communications, and the more we see it in our data, the juice isn't worth the squeeze often. The amount of money that it costs to be able to deliver one-to-one isn't worth. You don't get the return on investment as if you're delivering, 50,000 to one, for example. So that's the bit that we're really focused on. How do you deliver scale, but with personalisation as well?
And I've got a strong feeling about this, which I think has been backed up in studies, that if the advertising is well done and suitable for what you want, it's aimed at your interests, it's not bad advertising, it's actually something you enjoy. So I think getting the personalisation, getting the messaging right, the right ads in the right shows to the right audiences is the way we'll all thrive, actually, because you want the efficiency, you want to hit the right people. If you hit the right person with the right ad, it's not a chore to watch that ad, it's actually of interest to them. But the old days of TV, it was one to many, and you had to sit through a load of ads you weren't interested in.
In terms of doom scrolling, 74% of people admit that they use their mobile phone whilst watching TV. It's quite a large number, isn't it?
It is. It's a scary stat. So, and by the way, I think there will be less TV made going forward, and everybody's doing kind of what we are. After our first year, we threw a lot at the wall to sort of see what would stick a little bit in the first year, and then we realised actually we need to just do a little less, do it bigger, and work with our marketing colleagues to make these big moments. And I think if everybody's doing that, there'll be a little less to watch, and because right now everything out there in streaming, it will take you 30 years to watch it. Someone did this analysis recently, so it is ridiculous. So the doom scrolling thing, we've got to find ways around that, and I think, as I say, we'll work at it. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but personalisation will play a big part.
Okay, I've just had a 5-minute warning, so I think we'll finish with one last question. So the ITV brand really is truly distinctive, I think, and holds a very special place in the culture of the UK. So what do you think is really it about the brand, and how are you going to maintain that in a really competitive landscape?
Good question. The brand is really special. I think... And its heritage is really special. We're 70 years old next year, and not many brands have been at the heart of popular culture, embedded, within the British psyche for that long. And I think there are elements that really do stand us apart from global streamers, and part of that is being British, making content that is relevant within this market. That doesn't mean that all the content is British, but it means that we understand British audiences better than anyone else, and therefore we curate, commission, acquire content that is relevant for those audiences, and I do think that sets us apart. I also think there's a playfulness about the ITV brand. We are famous for entertainment, for Saturday nights, for a joy, I think, which isn't imbued necessarily in every single other streaming brand. We talk about a lot that we're serious about entertainment, and we really are. We believe passionately about people enjoying watching TV and the power of TV to bring levity and enjoyment to people's lives. And that does stand us apart from, global tech players like Amazon or Apple. That it is quite different. And I think the more, particularly, you guys all know owning brands yourself, I think the more you play to your strengths, the better it can be from a brand point of view. So, we'll continue to do those things that make us special rather than trying to be everyone else.
And I'm going to sound a bit bullish here and boast a bit, but one of the reasons somebody was saying to me 20 years ago, live scheduled TV will be dead, was partly because Sky had come along and there was multi-channel. And I think people do forget that TV has taken on competitors before. Streaming isn't new, and everybody's going, what are we going to do? Because there was a revolution in the 90s led by Sky, where suddenly there wasn't just 4 TV channels anymore, there were hundreds. And guess what? Channel share started to drop and the world changed. And if you look at it now, the BBC, ourselves, Channel 4, Channel 5, we all survived by creating our own portfolios, which were dominant in that world. So there's something about these brands, they're special to people, but I think Jane hit the nail on the head. We've had 70 years of being data nerds. It goes right back to 1955, looking at the data and doing quality TV, making, we spend over £1 billion a year making TV in the UK for UK audiences. And I love a lot of what the big streamers do, the Netflix and the Disney Pluses, but a lot of it does feel global. There are some homegrown successes, but not that many when you look at them. I think we're there to provide that link for UK audiences to UK content. And as long as we keep making the good content and making it available to wherever people are, I think we can take this challenge on. And I think in a cluttered brand world, where you can get your content from so many different places, having a brand name like ITV at the centre of it is, it's an important marker. And there is that wider issue of people don't know what they can trust when it comes to news. And ITV News is consistently rated one of the most trustworthy sources of news in the UK. So some of these things count for something, and I think so people sort of trust the TV we make, trust the news we report, and hopefully that will continue as long as we stay active in the places those audiences are.
Now, I thought X was the most trusted news source. No, I'm joking. Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of our session. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Craig.